breakfast? Oh. Not right now. You want to save it for later? Stella does that sometimes when I feed her. I'll put her food in her bowl, and instead of just eating out of the bowl, she grabs it and brings it to the carpet, and sometimes she does that nose thing, like she's burying it, and then she just leaves it there. And other times she'll do that, and then she'll go back a minute later and eat it. She went back and ate it, but now she's not eating the rest of her food. She's a little too preoccupied with her toy. I've gone through quite a few changes when it comes to what I feed Stella. There's been some struggles when it comes to getting her to eat and getting her to like her food. And not just with her meals, but also with treats and figuring out what treats work best for her, what chews work best for her. So I thought it would be a good idea to make a video for you guys to kind of explain what my experience with picking dog food has been. And there's 3 different types of food that you give your dog. There's the food for their meals, the food for their treats, and food for their chews. By chews, I mean kind of like bones or rawhides, those kind of things. So I'm gonna start with explaining the chews and the treats because those are pretty short. And then I will get into the controversial topic of what kind of meals I feed my dog. I say controversial because people have very strong opinions about what you feed your dog. Which is fair. Food is the greatest source of nutrition for your dog. So you don't want to be feeding them garbage or something that's going to make them unhealthy. You want them to live long and healthy lives. She's making a game out of this now. I think the first couple were by accident, and now it's just so fun, isn't it? I'll start with chews because there's only one type of chew that I will give Stella. There's 3 that I've tried. There's bully stick, rawhides, and no hide. Bully sticks, she went crazy for. If you've given your dog a bully stick, you know. But the problem with the bully stick is that it's so thin, or at least the ones that I was getting, it's the perfect size to fit down her throat. And she would chew it about 3/4 of the way until there's about this much left, and then she would just swallow it whole. Oh, she's going back for some more food now. Which is obviously so not healthy. Most of the time she would throw it up. Sometimes it would come out the other end, literally in a whole piece. But the danger with that is that it could clog the stomach. After all that rabbit playing, she's finally ready to eat. So that's why I stopped using the bully stick. Then there's rawhide. I only tried this one once, and again, she liked it. But rawhides don't digest in the stomach. So when she would swallow full pieces, it doesn't digest, it doesn't break down, at least from what I've read and heard. So again, that brings on the risk of it clogging a stomach. So that was a no-go for me. And then there are a ton of other different types of bones, but I've just never tried them because I've seen those videos on the internet of dogs who get it stuck on their lower jaw or across the roof of their mouth, just all those types of things. So I didn't want any long-lasting bones. I wanted chews that she could break down within a few hours of chewing on it. And that's when I discovered the no-hide. So it's called a no-hide because it's like a rawhide, but it's not a rawhide. It's meant to actually digest and break down when they swallow pieces. And Stella doesn't swallow the pieces often, but eventually she does tear off some pieces, and usually she spits them out, but every once in a while she swallows them. But with this one, I find that when she swallows it, it doesn't make her throw up. I don't see it come out the other end, and that's because it digests. I get my no-hide from a local pet store, but I'm sure that they sell them at a ton of other pet stores as well. And then there's treats. For treats, I wanted a good training treat that would really get her attention. I started with some chicken treats. Then I also tried these little venison, like chewy, small training treats. Honestly, I've tried a bunch of different brands of a ton of different treats. She's probably tried about 12 or 13 different treats. And the ones that I find work the best, I've said this in other videos too, is the freeze-dried beef treats. Beef seems to be Stella's favorite flavor. Obviously, every dog is different. Your dog could like lamb, or it could like chicken, venison. There's so many different flavors. But for Stella, beef is what really does it for her. So those are my go-to for training, for just everyday stuff in the house, giving her treats. It's always freeze-dried beef treat. And then the second treat that she gets on almost a daily basis is greenies. I've also showed these in another video. I also have some of these things linked down below in my favorites bar on my website, but basically greenies are a treat, but they also help clean your dog's teeth and keep their oral health in check. So those are the two treats that I give Stella. Now for her meals. As you can see, Stella eats kibble, dry kibble, and even though she didn't want to eat it at first, it's been about 5 minutes and now she's eating it and loving it. You all done? Usually she burps after. I'll see if I can get the burp. Oh my God. That was a big burp. She does that after every meal. It's so funny. Was that tasty? So as I was saying, it's a big decision to choose what kind of food you're gonna feed your dogs for meals. And honestly, I never really thought that much about what I feed dogs. I've had so many dogs growing up and all of them just ate kibble without much thought going into it. But because I got a miniature dachshund and they do have some extra health concerns, I started reading more about this health stuff, and then I started learning about raw food and home cooked meals and all these different options. And that's when I started actually reading the ingredients list on the food I was giving Stella. So I'm gonna explain to you what I first fed Stella when I got her as an 8-week-old puppy, to all the different foods that I tried and how I chose the food that I feed her now. I always say this in all my videos, but I am not a pet professional of any kind. I'm not a vet, I'm not a dog trainer. This is just me sharing my experience so that maybe if you're relating to some of the things I went to, then you can look into those and talk to your vet about it and do some research of your own as well. But my experience was when I got Stella as a little puppy, the breeder gave me a bag of dog food that she had already been eating, so she was already used to it. And this was a Royal Canin puppy dog food kibble, and she did not push Royal Canin at all. She said, this is what I feed my puppies. You can continue buying this from the store and keep feeding it to her, or you can transition. But she did say that if I was going to transition her kibble, to do it slowly and to mix them a little bit so that it just wasn't a shock to her stomach, because she was so small and a growing puppy. Stella liked it. She was excited to eat it. I didn't see a problem with it. Royal Canin is a very well-known brand, so I just automatically trusted it because I've heard its name before. Then once Stella got to the age where she could go to adult food, then I transitioned to the Royal Canin small dog adult food. So I fed her the Royal Canin puppy food for a while. And then Stella started having some stomach problems. She started to lose interest in her food. She would just kind of sniff it and walk away. She wasn't super interested in the food she was eating. Sometimes she'd skip meals, and she was throwing up almost daily. And it wasn't a lot of throw up. It was just little tiny puddles. And otherwise, she seemed completely healthy. She had a lot of energy. Her coat was good. She was playing regularly, sleeping regularly, a healthy weight, growing how she was supposed to, but she was just throwing up and not enjoying her food. So I took her to the vet and we tried switching to a GI, which is gastrointestinal food. So she tried that for a while. It was also a Royal Canin brand of GI food. And when I first got it, she ate it so fast. She loved it for about a few weeks. So she went from not eating all her meals to now she was gobbling them all up. I think it's because she was just so excited about having a new flavor and a new dog food. And it did help with her stomach issues. She wasn't throwing up as frequently. She was still throwing up every once in a while, but it wasn't as frequent. So anyway, she was on that for maybe a few months. And then she went back to not really being interested in her food. I think she just got tired of the flavor. And this is when I started reading up on different food options. So I was looking into raw food, into home cooked meals. And the thing with home cooked meals is if you're gonna home cook your dog's meals, like let's say make some chicken, blueberries, carrots, spinach, that kind of thing, you need to do a lot of research. You can't just cook and feed them what you think. There's a lot that goes into these raw food companies and these kibble companies, a lot of research, a lot of calculations of the exact vitamins and nutritions that these dogs need. And even though a home cooked meal seems really healthy for your dog, it might not be giving them all the nutrients. So you just need to make sure that if you're going with that home cooked option, that one, you have the time and the lifestyle that you're able to home cook your dog 2 meals a day, and 2, that you talk to a vet and pet nutritionist and do your research and make sure that you're actually giving them the right things. And so for me, this just wasn't really an option because I didn't have or want to make the time to do that when there's other options. So then I was deciding between raw food or a new kibble. And kibble seems the most appealing to me just because I've always had dogs who are on kibble and they've all lived long, healthy lives. So I have a trust in kibble. I also myself don't eat a lot of meat. I eat a very plant-focused diet as just a personal preference. So the idea of handling a lot of raw meat and buying a lot of raw meat and feeding that to my dog didn't sound super appealing to me. If that was the only option, obviously I would do it, but it did deter me a little bit away from the raw food. So I started looking more into the nutritional value of raw food versus kibble food, and this is where the controversy comes in with the raw versus kibble diet because there's so much mixed information out there. There are vets and professionals who say that, it's natural for dogs to eat raw food. That is the best option for them to get all their nutrients. It's best for their dental, it's best for their digestion, their coat, everything like that. But then there's also vets and pet nutritionists who say the opposite and say that kibble is the most fulfilling and nutritious. It's made out of science and professionals picking out the right ingredients and right vitamins and right nutrients, and that is best for your dog's dental hygiene, their coat, their digestion, all of that. So after I had done all of my reading and research and consideration, I came to the conclusion, and my personal opinion is that there are health benefits to kibble and there are health benefits to raw diet, and there isn't really a wrong option. Every dog is different and is gonna have a different taste palette and like different flavored foods. Also, every breed is different. So I think it's important to experiment and try feeding your dog a bunch of different kibbles to see what works best for them. Maybe try raw food, see if that works better for them. Some dogs are gonna have reactions to the raw food and some dogs are gonna have reactions to the kibble, which might make you have to choose one or the other. For me, I decided that I would prefer to go with kibble. And the biggest deterrent for me from raw food was the price, the time, and that you have to be extremely cautious handling raw food. Obviously, if you're doing it in your kitchen, wherever you're doing it, you have to be careful handling raw food, and also with your dog, right after they eat raw food, you have to be a little bit cautious of, whose face they're licking. Those were the biggest deterrents for me, so I wanted to try kibble first. If for some reason kibble didn't work out, then I would give raw food a try. But for me, I wanted to start with kibble first. So at this point, Stella had been on the GI kibble for a while and she wasn't loving it. It did help her stomach a little bit to settle. We still didn't know 100% what the issue was that was making her throw up. So I thought, let's just try going back to regular kibble. And after doing some reading, I knew that I wanted to choose a kibble whose first ingredient was a meat. The first ingredient should be chicken, beef, duck, lamb, and that's it. It shouldn't be some type of grain. It shouldn't be some unrecognizable word. Another option is if it says chicken meal or beef meal. I don't know a ton about that stuff, but what I was told from the person I was talking to and getting advice from was that that means it's just a little bit more processed. So it still is based from the actual meat, it's just a little bit more processed. So it is ideal to have it say just chicken instead of chicken meal as the first ingredient. So I went to the pet store and I got about 6 or 7 different little sample bags of dog food that had these ingredients I was looking for, and I started trying them out. And Stella was extremely picky. Usually what she would do is when I'd give it to her the first time, she'd wolf it down because it's a new flavor, it's very exciting, and then the second time she'd sniff it and she'd be like, no, I think I want to try something new. So I went through those trial packs pretty quick and she didn't really love any of them, but I just decided to go with one anyway and thought maybe if she just gets used to it and realizes this is your food, take it or leave it, that she'd start eating it. So I tried doing that, but she would go days at a time without eating. So I started sprinkling some treats on top. I started mixing in wet food. I was doing all this stuff to get her to eat because I was worried about her starving herself. And at this point, the throwing up had stopped a lot. So I don't know if it was that her stomach matured or that she had something going on, but then after being on the GI food for a while, it resolved it. But whatever was going on that was making her throw up had stopped. Now it was just a problem of getting her to eat the food. So I was concerned because Stella would go about 2 days at a time without eating, and then she'd eat a meal, and then she'd not eat for a while. She was still a healthy weight, but she was just being so picky. So I called my vet, and he told me to be more strict with how I fed her. So give her food for 10 minutes in the morning, no treats, no wet food, put it down, leave it for 10 minutes. If she doesn't eat it, it goes back up and she doesn't get it. And then at dinner time, do the same thing, put it down for 10 minutes. If she doesn't eat it, take it and put it back up. So that she learns this is your food and you either eat it now or you don't eat. Because what I was training her to do, and I didn't realize I was training her to do, was if I put down the food and it's boring and bland and she doesn't feel like it, then if she waits it out, I'll go grab some treats and put it on top, or go grab some wet food. So I didn't notice I was training her to be a picky eater. So the vet said, stop doing that and just be strict with it. If she goes more than 3 days without eating, then he said to take her back in, and then they'll look into tests and stuff like that. So I tried this, and she went 2 days without eating, and then it was the 3rd day, and I really had no faith that she was gonna eat it, and then I put it down and she ate the whole thing. I put down her dinner, she ate the whole thing, and it was like a flip switch and she was cured. So now where I'm at with the feeding is Stella's almost 2 years old. She's been on this kibble for about 6 months. It's a really healthy kibble, has really nice ingredients. I'll put a picture of what I feed her right here. And she's not a picky eater anymore. Sometimes I put down her food like you saw earlier and she'll sniff it and walk away because she's too busy playing, but then she'll go back to it within a few minutes and eat it. And sometimes she even occasionally will skip a meal. I'd say about once every few days, maybe once a week, she'll just skip a meal. She just doesn't feel like eating, which I've also talked to the vet about, and he says is totally normal. It's a small dog thing. Sometimes they just don't need to eat 2 meals a day. But I think I've finally found the solution to Stella's eating problems, and I just wanted to share with you guys because I have seen other people with dachshunds who say that they're very picky eaters or they're having trouble finding a kibble that they'll eat, which was exactly my problem. So this was my solution. Stella seems like a pretty healthy dog to me. She has a ton of energy. She has a nice coat. She's a healthy weight. So I am happy with my decision to go with kibble, but again, I think it differs for every dog. So make sure that you take into consideration your lifestyle and your needs and your dog's lifestyle and your dog's needs. Working dogs obviously need more food and nutrition than just regular pet dogs. So don't go out and get the same food as me just because it's what I feed Stella, and Stella's healthy, because your dog could be different. I hope this video helped you picking out food for your dog. If it did, you should give it a thumbs up down below. Let me know that you liked the video and hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.